Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new video, a brand new message I'm going to share with you on the subject of faith in God, knowledge in God, trust in God, which leads to joy and happiness in life and in our service before God, which is something that I promised to my congregation yesterday. I would elaborate and talk on that subject in today's message. In my last video, we talked about serving God in joy, Ivdu es Hashem besimcha. And we talked about the idea that it's not always easy and pleasant to be happy and joyous. But that's precisely why King David uses this exact wording, Ivdu es Hashem besimcha, which is sometimes you got to be a servant, you got to be a slave, you got to push yourself, even though you don't feel like it, because that's the right way to do it. And when you do it the right way, you are going to come to the destination, which is joy and which is happiness. Fake it till you make it is very true and very real when it comes to acting joyous and talking joyous and making sure you think joyous thoughts. And we said sometimes that's a matter of eved. That's a matter of sometimes pushing yourself to be that way. Boy lafane bernana, come before God in song and in singing. That's one of the key ingredients. That's one of the very important keys to experiencing joy and being happy, and that is having music, seeing the world and the harmony, and listening to the music that's in life itself. So I'd like to elaborate a little bit further on this subject. How do we manifest and reach this important destination, or this very important element in our lives, to be joyous? It's something that the Torah repeats again and again as a very important factor in being Jewish and in serving God and in receiving his blessings. Strength and joy is in the place of God. If you want to be in the place of God, you want to be close to his blessings, you got to be joyous, and that brings strength. And that's the real determining factor whether you're in the place of God or not. Whereas the Torah says in another place, which means in English that because you are not joyous, that's why not good things happen, which means that when you are joyous, good things happen. So yesterday in Shul, I brought up this subject, and they were asking for more depth and to elaborate on it a little bit further. We were talking about Abraham and the first believing person, the first patriarch of the Jewish people. And he was commanded by God to leave where he was born and where he was brought up at the age of 75 years old. So the Torah tells us, God's word, it finds it important enough to share with us that he was 75 years old when he was first commanded to go out and to take on the mission of God. And it's mentioned in books that the word bitachon, the word trust in God, which is such an important element in life, the word, as we said last night, in the Havdalah, we said in the Havdalah last night, Hinei kel Yeshuasi, my God, who is my salvation, eftach v'lo yevchad. I have trust in him, and when I have trust in him, I'm not afraid. I don't fear. And so you can imagine one of the very, very important negative, so to say, kind of forces that push us down in life is fear. Fear and anger, which brings anxiety. These are all negative traits. Of course, it always tries to rear its head in our lives, as we read in a few portions ago of the Torah, that sin crouches at the door all the time, and sin is just another word for something which is from the forces that are the opposite of holiness. And so being fearful and being angry, these are all elements from negative forces. In other words, they're not going to bring something positive and something happy and something of blessing in our lives. And we said in the Havdalah, in the very special service that separates the Saturday from the time afterwards, we said, Eftach v'lo yevchad, I have trust in God, and then the results are that I'm not afraid. Hashem li lo ira. God is with me, and I'm not afraid, and I don't fear. And we have all these beautiful, nice words of wisdom and of advice that the Torah tells us how to reach the best places and the best ways in which to live life. So let's talk a little bit about the fact that Abraham was 75 years old when he was commanded to go out on his mission. And his mission wasn't an easy one. It was riddled one test after the other. And he was 75 years old. The word bitachon, its numerical value is 75. And that's not just coincidental or random. In other words, the Torah is telling us that Abraham, what was his strength? What was his foundation from which he went out on his mission of challenges and tests? It was the age of 75. It was with the energy of bitachon, of trust in God. So how do we reach, what does it mean to trust in God and to reap all the benefits that come from having that trust in God? You know, another verse in the Tehillim says that Rabbi Machoivim B'Hashem B'Batech B'Hashem Chesed Yisrael B'Venu. Anyway, the end of that verse is that Habatech B'Hashem, and the one that trusts in God, kindness always surrounds him. So we got these verses here and there that when we have that faith, we are not afraid. That when we have that trust, then kindness surrounds us. That and so, how do we reach this experience in life? So let's back up a little bit and let's give you a little bit of some background and some depth, right? Because if you got some background, you got some depth, you're going to get the whole picture. It's not just going to be something superficial in you. You're going to be able to sort of say, you're going to be able to put your teeth in it, and it's going to become something real, something of substance in your life. So the Torah tells us that you have to believe in God. The Torah tells us also you have to have faith in God. The Torah tells us you have to know God. The Torah tells us you have to trust in God. So how does this exactly work? What is the order, if there is any, that we approach all these very many commandments? This is actually a matter of great debate in the big books. What comes first? When the Torah tells us to have faith in God, is that first, and then we have to be, then we're commanded that you should know today that God is our God, in the heavens above, and in the land below. What goes first? The faith in God, and then the knowledge in God? So the debate goes like this. I mean, if you don't know that there is a God, how can you ever even be commanded anything from this God? So shouldn't it be like the premise to everything is that we know that there's already a God, or we acknowledge that there's a God, then afterwards we can go on and pay attention and take seriously the commands of this God. But then there is the other perspective, which says, first there is the commandment to have faith in God, to acknowledge there's a God, and then there is the commandment to know, to, in other words, absorb and personalize that faith in God. So, like, for example, what's the difference between faith in God or knowledge in God, right? So there's one way to explain faith in God is that I have faith that there's a God, just exactly that. I've never seen him. I don't know him, but I've been told that he exists. And so I have faith that he is there. And then I go further and I work on my knowledge of this God. I work further on my knowledge of this God by seeing his effects in this world. I see what he's created. I see how precise it is. And I work to personally appreciate the knowledge of this God. And I can work on that knowledge by seeing what he created. If I go to a shop and I see this complicated machinery, so then if I think into it a little bit, I know that there had to be an engineer that designed this product. There had to be a very smart scientist. There's a whole bunch of people involved in bringing this precise product. It just didn't grow out of the ground random. So I know that there had to be a manufacturer, and there had to be a smart guy behind the manufacturing process and things of that sort. That's one way at looking at faith, and then the knowledge. I didn't get yet to the trust in this God that I know and that I have faith in him. Then there's another way to look at this entire process, and that is the fact that there is a God. That nobody needs to tell me. That's already, the premise to everything. Jews are ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. They are believers. The children of believers. In other words, it's something that we inherit. It's something that we bequeathed from our parents and from their parents. They stood around the mountain of Mount Sinai. They recorded the book, and they passed it down from one generation to the next generation. So I believe that there is a God because my father believed in that God who was told by his father. And so we believe in it because we got it from credible sources, and we know that it's, and we believe in it, and we have faith that it is there. I know that my people were taken out of Egypt. That's recorded in the book. Archaeological finds back up so many of the historical stories that are written in our books. So that's a fait accompli, as they say. That's an accepted fact that I have faith in this force and in this, so to say, superior being who is behind and who is at my side as a Jewish person. So really, the first commandment that I really got to take seriously is the commandment that Maimonides, the Rambam, writes in his Sefer HaMitzvahs, in his book of mitzvahs, and that is that I need to know that there is a God. In other words, it's something that is deeper, and it's something that is more real in my life. I know beyond a shadow of doubt that there is a God. I look at my body. I see the trillions of cells, and I see how complicated each cell is, and I see how they all work, and they all complement, and they support each other. And I see all the different systems in my body, whether it's the nervous system, and whether it's all the different systems that exist in my body, my mind, my gut, everything, the muscles, and I see how they all complement each other. I know for a fact that there is a very, very intelligent designer that makes each single one of these atoms and each single one of those molecules and cells, and all of them that work in a phenomenal, fantastic kind of a way. So when I think into the vastness of the universe, and I think about how everything complements each other in such a precise kind of a way, the way the vapor is drawn up by the heat of the sun, and it becomes the clouds, and then it goes and it waters the entire ground. It's the best irrigation system that there is. And it's such a phenomenal kind of a system that operates. When I think into the entire, so to say, complicated mechanism of the universe and of my body, I know for sure, unless you're dumb, unless you want to pull the wool over your eyes, you know for sure that there was a great architect and there's a great manufacturer that made these things. No different than when you look at an airplane, you would never imagine that it came together by itself. You take one look at it and you see the way all the different systems support each other. You know for sure that there was a manufacturer who followed a very specific blueprint that was designed by great engineers and scientists and things of that sort. So this is really the true first commandment that we are commanded to perform, which is really the foundation upon which our lives can be built on. And that is to know that there is a God, to take further the faith, the acceptance that there is a God, and to more personally appreciate his personal interaction with me and in my life and in the world around me. Then we go to the commandment of having faith in God. This is the true understanding of having faith in God, as we read in this past week's Torah portion, that when Abraham was promised to have a child, so it says V'he'emin b'Hashem, that Abraham, he had faith, he had faith, he believed in the promise, and God considered that to him as a merit. That's really where faith truly belongs in the hierarchy of things. Actually, this is, like I said earlier, a great debate between the great sages and Rabbi Schneerson, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, in the way he explains the interaction between faith and knowledge. He explains it just like I did with you right now, and that is, it's all intertwined with each other when it comes down to it. There is a faith which has to be deepened by a knowledge, which is then taken even further to accepting what God does, even when it still hasn't yet manifested or materialized. But once you come to the conclusion that there's incredibly intelligent and kind creator to the world and to my body and to my life, then I have faith in the promises that he has given us in the Bible and through our prophets and through our great sages. Just like Abraham believed, it still didn't yet express itself. He was already an old man. And for him to go and believe in the promise that he would be the father of a great nation took a lot of faith. And he did it because he knew that there was this incredible, great, big God. He was building his faith in God. He was resting his faith in God on the knowledge that was already something of certainty in his life. So once we have this combination of faith and knowledge, where there is already the built-in faith that there is a God, which we develop further into a knowledge, which we then extend into a faith with our, so to say, arms open, waiting for things to come through as our sages and as our prophets already promised. Then there is the trust in God. What is the trust in God? You know, my father tells me a story that once in his hometown, when lotteries first came out, so there was a rabbi that was preaching in the shul that whoever has true trust in God, he will win the lottery, because that is the nature of trust. And that is, so to say, the outcome of trust. Our books tell us that when a person truly trusts God, then God doesn't let him down. Then the outcome is always going to be something that's positive. It's always going to be something that's good. It's going to be always something, a blessing, and in the person's life. And so this person went and bought the lottery, and he was telling everybody he was going to win the lottery. Let's say the lottery was for $1 million. And so the word got around town that he was for sure winning it, because he heard the rabbi say, whoever trusts that they're going to win the lottery will certainly win the lottery. And he was sure he was going to win the lottery. The rabbi, hearing what was going on and what the rumor was about, told his helper the night before the lottery was going to take place, go over to him and offer him $800,000 cash tonight for the ticket that's going to be pulled tomorrow for $1 million, and see if he takes the offer. So they went to his house, they made the offer, they told him that it's the rabbi himself that's making that offer. $800,000 cash tonight for this ticket that you're so sure is going to win $1 million tomorrow. And of course, the guy, he says to himself, the rabbi is making me an offer. How can I refuse the rabbi? And he says to the rabbi's helper, tell the rabbi, I'm all in. I'll go for his offer. So the rabbi's helper goes back to the rabbi's residence or to his office, and he tells him that the offer was accepted. And what's the next step? The rabbi says to his helper, go to the fellow and tell him that the offer is off the table. Helper says, why are you saying that? And the rabbi says, which idiot goes and sells a ticket that's worth $1 million, that he's so sure it's worth $1 million for 800? If he is really so sure that he's going to win $1 million the next day, he wouldn't be so fast to go and sell it the night before for $800,000. $800,000. The fact that he's willing to sell it for $800,000 the night before means that there might be a slight little weakness in his trust that he really is going to win $1 million the next day. Now, I once saw a picture on Facebook, and it was describing different types of, I guess, characters within a person, and it had a picture of a child being thrown up in the air. And the meme underneath the picture said, this is the meaning and the definition of trust. The child is enjoying every single minute of being thrown up in the air. He has not 1 ounce, not 1 millimeter, not 1 gram of hesitation or anxiety or fear that he is not going to be caught when he falls back down again. He's enjoying the exhilaration of getting thrown up in the air and then falling down and getting caught by his father, by his mother, whoever it is that's throwing up in the air. That's real trust. Real trust is even when you're suspended up in the air, and if you thought about it, you'd have really what to be afraid of. But you're not afraid because you know that you're in good hands. You know that God runs the world. You know that nothing could happen if not for God being there and making it happen. You're in good hands all the time. And if you're in good hands all the time, then as we said in the Havdalah last night, eftach v'lo yevchad. If there is a real trust in God, as we say, in God we trust, if that is real in your heart and in your mind, then it doesn't come along with any kind of fear, because you know that everything is always going to work out for your good, for the best of what is needed for you. And when a person has this combination of the born or built-in awareness that there is a God, that he develops further into a knowing and into a knowledge. Right? A knowledge is what influences the emotions. Whatever you feed your mind is always going to give birth. It's always going to somehow, it's going to make its way down into your heart, and you're going to experience the results of those thoughts. As I said before, what you focus on, what you put your conscious on in life, if you put your conscious, if you put your knowledge on fear, and it's going to bring anxiety. But if you put your knowledge, if you put your focus on trust, then that's going to bring the ease of heart. That's going to bring joy. That's going to bring happiness. You're never going to feel constrained and constricted. That's one of the things of simcha. One of the outgrowths of joy is that it breaks barriers. You're not you are at your widest and you are at your best potential when you're joyous and when you're happy. Yeah, let me admit to you, and let me acknowledge that, you know, the evil inclination is always trying to get the better of us, and we can't be joyous and happy all the time. But that is the, so to say, the goal and the destination that we need to be conscientious and focus on all the time. And the more we are conscientious and focused of being joyous and of being happy for a good reason, because we have trust in God that he is always around us, in us, with us, and he loves us, and he is the most intelligent person to know what is best for us, and he has kindness, which is always stronger than any other of his, so to say, faculties of severity and judgment. God is more kind than he is severe and judgmental. And so therefore, putting all these things together, this gives a person a tremendous amount of joy. And joy comes from something that is internal. Real happiness doesn't come from things that are external. I'm going to buy something else. I'm going to get myself, I'm going to go to the restaurant tonight. I'm going to eat something that tastes good. Yeah, eating something that tastes good is important every so often, but that's not the source of joy. The source of joy, the source of happiness that is long-term, that is really of true value, that is going to take a person through lifetime, has to be developed. It has to be developed, and it's a constant effort to keep on feeding the energy, the fuel that brings about the internal happiness and the internal faith. So that's a hopefully not too long, a short kind of course, a map that takes a person to being joyous and happy in life. And in these days, we need it more than ever. With everything that's going on in the world, we have to strengthen our knowledge of God in the world. Nothing can happen without God being there. It can't exist and survive if God didn't want it to be. And this God is a good God and an intelligent God. And therefore, I have faith that in whatever he is doing it for the good. And that combination of this faith, this kind of faith, and knowledge brings us to the step of having a lot of trust in what he's doing. And if I have trust in what he's doing, so I'm not afraid, I'm not anxious and ridden with anxiety for what's going to happen in the future. I just know that I have to do what I have to as a good Jew. I have to follow the commandments of God and deepen my attachment and connection with God. And the more I deepen my connection and attachment with God, the better off I'm going to be. And with my trust in God, this is what brings the joy and the happiness of every single moment that I'm not alone and that God is always with me. So listen to this tape, and I'm sure every single time you hear it again and again, it's going to ring a different sound. It's going to play a different note of music. And with music, you're going to have a lot of joy. It's going to feed on itself like a snowball, which will bring you to the best place, which is joy and happiness and blessings to take us through life in the most in the most pleasant way possible.